Greetings, nerdlings, and welcome to AmalgamNation Presents World of Loreccraft, Factioncraft, Scarlet Crusade Edition. The Scarlet Crusade is a religious organization dedicated to the eradication of the undead. They are a major adversary of the Forsaken, and several quests in Tearsfall Glades involve attacks on Scarlet Crusade troops, leaders, and strongholds. The Scarlet Crusade maintains several bastions throughout the former lands of Lordaeron, namely the Scarlet Monastery, Heartglen, Tyr's Hand, the fortified Cathedral of Stratholme, and several smaller camps and watchtowers spread throughout the area. It is also the only hierarchy left of the Kingdom of Lordaeron after its destruction by the Scourge. After the attack on the Scarlet Enclave, the Scarlet Crusade renamed itself to the Scarlet Onslaught and operates in Northrend. The Scarlet Crusade is a group of warriors dedicated to the destruction of all undead and an example of what happens when mad zealots take over a good cause. The Crusade's members are mostly soldiers. Many are Knights of the Silver Hand who saw such devastation wrought by the Scourge that they resort to extreme measures to destroy the undead. After the disbanding of their brotherhood and the culling of Stratholme, many Knights of the Silver Hand remained in Lordaeron for reasons ranging from missing the fleeing boats to a sense of duty to clear their homeland of the undead. In the Western Plaguelands, the Scarlet Crusade strikes against the Scourge from Heartglen. They hunt the undead in Lordaeron with a frightening zeal. They commonly attack the living who wander too close to their holdings. These paladins have a frightening policy. When in doubt, assume the worst. Many innocent mortals have been killed through misunderstandings or simply for good measure. Those who question their leaders or policies are assumed to be undead sympathizers and are slain. While the Alliance is in agreement that the Scourge needs to be eradicated from Lordaeron so they can return home, few Alliance members would agree with the methods used by the Scarlet Crusade. They are the natural enemies of the Scourge and the Forsaken, but they have made themselves the enemy of any who cannot quickly and definitively prove their mortality. Despite its successes, the Crusade is a powerful force in the Eastern Kingdoms, having already destroyed several undead encampments in Lordaeron, and defeated a number of dangerous liches, as well as the Dreadlord Belteris. The Scarlet Crusade sees no difference between the Forsaken and the Scourge, and battle the Forsaken zealously. They distrust any non-human races, although there once were other races such as High Elves and Dwarves in their ranks. They may end up alone on the continent, or more likely, die trying. History of the Scarlet Crusade. After Lord Uther the Lightbringer was betrayed and killed by his former apprentice Artus Mentil, the Knights of the Silver Hand were devastated by the Scourge's undead armies. Isilian was formerly a priest of the Holy Light in Lordaeron, assigned to be the liaison for the Knights of the Silver Hand. There he worked closely with the elder High General Abendis, the father of younger Abendis, and his youthful charges, tutoring the young paladins in their quest for truth. Priests and paladins fought as the Scourge attacked the city, but they fled as Lordaeron fell around them. Some whisper it was the wounds both men received in battle, or perhaps just the shock of seeing their whole purpose destroyed, but since that day both Isilian and Abendis had become quite insane. Isilian and Abendis wandered the area as the Scourge defiled the land, destroying what undead they could, gathering what warriors would join them. They had but one concern: eradication of all that had destroyed Lordaeron. Among the group of the high-ranking officers were Isilian, the Abendis' both father and daughter, Ranald Mograine, Talon Fordring, and Balnazar, who had possessed the corpse of Saidan Datrohan. and they have been said to have helped found the Scarlet Crusade, an order of knights focused on the singular goal of defeating the Scourge in all its forms. Talon Fordring, one of Isillion's protégés, adored his tutor and his general. He offered his family's keep and land, untouched by the undead, for their base of operations. The crusade gained members whose lives had been ruined by the Scourge. Most members have seen a loved one die, and more often than not be raised to fight alongside their murderer. Isillion became the spokesman for the group, his ravings gaining more followers than repelling them, and who could argue with the man that the undead were evil? Some had reason to pause when Isillion's young page was found with Isillion's knife through his heart, and the priest calmly reported that the page had died that afternoon while hunting, and the undead had raised him and sent him back as an assassin. He was so convincing that the incident cemented the fear for most. If a freshly killed and raised undead can look just like a regular human, they had no idea who among them may or may not be with the Scourge. After a month of quarantine, all priests and warriors with the Crusade were declared clean. The elder Abendis and Isilion felt that, although they had a good base, they really needed to attack the Scourge where they were the thickest, in the eastern Plaguelands. Isilion took on the title of Grand Inquisitor and control of the Western Crusade, while the elder Abendis led the majority of the forces to Tyr's Hand in the east to strike at Stratholme. As they established their bases and took in many more warriors, they destroyed any undead they found. Frequently, groups of refugees fleeing the undead also fell beneath their furious swords. As the Grand Inquisitor claims, one cannot be too careful. All undead, good, evil, or neutral, Scourge or Forsaken, are the rivals of the Scarlet Crusade. The undead are abominations and must be destroyed before the land and the people can heal. They count the Alliance and the Church of Holy Light as their allies, but these organizations quickly distanced themselves from these fanatics and instruct all travelers to give a wide berth to any crusaders. Not long after its formation, the Crusade attempted a strike against the Scourge base in Northrend and built a fleet specifically for that purpose. The attempt failed, although the Crusaders reached as far as the mouth of Icecrown Glacier. There were many casualties among the high ranks of the Crusade, including its first and only Grand Admiral, first Captain General, and first Chief Assassin. There was, however, one region of the eastern Plaguelands which had been remarkably untouched by the plague that had despoiled the remainder of northern Lordaeron. This region was appropriately known as the Scarlet Enclave, consisting of the Scarlet capital of Tyr's Hand and the towns of Havenshire and New Avalon. These towns came under the protection of the Crusade forces stationed in Tyr's Hand, led by High General Brigitte Abendis, the last survivor of the Crusade's original founders. All that changed with the arrival of Acarus in the skies above the Enclave. In short order, the Scourge had established a base camp in the Ebonhold's shadow and began their campaign of destruction. As the Death Knights of Acarus began to march on Havenshire, Abendis claimed to receive visions from the light, instructing her to take the most faithful of her troops and journey to Northrend. This became known among the Scarlet troops as the Crimson Dawn, a revival of the Crusade and its holy mission. By that point, the Death Knights had laid waste to Havenshire and were now seeking to find out more about this Crimson Dawn, mentioned in New Avalon's registry, taken from the town hall after they murdered New Avalon's Mayor Quimby. They discovered that a courier had been sent from Heartglen by High Commander Galvar Pureblood, informing Abendis that an army of crusaders from Heartglen and Tirsfall were being assembled to reinforce the Enclave and battle the forces of Acarus. One of the Death Knights, disguised as the courier, having murdered the real courier and taking his clothing and Pureblood's message, delivered the message to Bendis. Realizing that the Plaguelands were lost, Bendis ordered the courier to return to Pureblood, inform him to turn his armies around and prepare for the journey to Northrend. She gave the courier a copy of her diary, claiming it would explain everything. It was at this point that she declared that the Scarlet Crusade was no more, that they were now the Scarlet Onslaught. The message never reached Pureblood, and his forces were annihilated by the Scourge as a result. With the combined army marching to their doom, High General Bendis boarded her flagship, the Sinner's Folly, and set sail for Northrend, leaving the Crusade to its fate. Upon reaching the shores of Northrend, Bendis established a new base in Dragonblight, which she named New Heartglen. From there, the remainder of the Scarlet Onslaught forces began rebuilding and planning their assault on the Lich King and his minions. Relying heavily on the advice of Barian Westwind, Bendis undertook a campaign to locate Light's Vengeance in Dragonblight. Believing that the former weapon of Artus would be a fitting key to his demise, Bendis invested her remaining forces into finding its location. In addition, her visions from the light continued to influence her decisions, leading even some among the Onslaught to begin questioning her sanity. All of this came to an end, however, when the Onslaught found itself facing Alliance and Horde adventurers also working to stop the Scourge. Bendis herself was killed in battle, and Grand Admiral Westwind was revealed to be Mal'Ganis in disguise, as well as the likely source of Bendis's visions. As a result, the Scarlet Onslaught found itself again bereft of leadership, with most of its forces in Northrend now destroyed as well. Their new campaign against the Scourge had ended at the Lich King's doorstep, cut short almost before it began. Not long after, however, Artus would be defeated by the combined might of Alliance, Horde, and Argent Crusade forces. With the exposure of Balnazzar and Mal'Ganis, much of the senior leadership supposedly eliminated, the Lich King's defeat and Tyrion Fordring retaking his old town of Heartglen for the Argent Crusade, the Scarlet Crusade has become a shadow of its former self. What is known is that the Scarlet Crusade have expanded their fortifications to the west of the Soledon farmstead in a new small area called the Scarlet Palisade. It has been discovered that the Crusade has completely lost Stratholme, with Balnazzar shedding his disguise and killing the remaining Scarlet Crusaders within the city. Balnazzar then used his necromantic powers to resurrect them as the Risen. A similar fate has befallen the Scarlet Presence in Tyr's hand. Hence, in an ironic twist of fate, many of the Scarlet holdouts have literally become what they sought to destroy. During the war between the Alliance and Horde that continued to spread across the world, the Scarlet Crusade still remained active in Tirsfall Glades, and now claimed the Scarlet Monastery as their primary base of operations. Now led by High Inquisitor Sally Whitemane, the Crusade concentrated on recruiting new members and keeping their mission alive. Along with Durand, who replaced Reynold Megraine as Scarlet Commander, Sally and Durand were responsible for the operations inside the monastery and surrounding countryside. With the final defeat of the Lich King, they turned their attention to the nearby Undercity and the reclamation of Tirsfall Glades. With a history of constant defeats and now much of their former leadership being undead, the Scarlets decided to purge their past and begin anew. With this in mind, Whitemane tasked Flameweaver Kogler to burn every page out of every book in their library. In addition, Lillian Voss, a former member of the Order and now an undead assassin, wanted to put an end to the Scarlet Crusade. To this end, Voss recruited heroes from both the Alliance and Horde to enter the monastery and kill Whitemane. The remaining Scarlet forces tried to defend the monastery, but were ultimately eliminated, including Durand and Whitemane themselves. Perhaps suffering the final defeat of the Order, the remaining members of the Scarlet Crusade retreated from the monastery and went into hiding. As of the Siege of Orgrimmar, it is believed that the Scarlet Crusade may finally be gone. Relations with the Scarlet Crusade. The Alliance races have many problems currently, the greatest of which is the loss of their homeland to the undead, the Horde, the demons and various monsters. Their once proud populations are either dead, undead or in hiding. They don't even have much of a base to call their own, except for the remote city of Stormwind, too far away to deal with the problems of Lordaeron with any real effectiveness. The elimination of the Scourge is any reasonable mortal's goal, but the Scarlet Crusade considers the many mortals it kills in its quest as acceptable losses. To the Alliance, the Crusade's single-mindedness is madness. So no, the Alliance does not condone the Scarlet Crusade's actions, but sees the problems caused by this organization as akin to having a stain on your shirt while your house is on fire. Until the greater problems are dealt with and the homeland is retaken, the Crusade will be free to act as it wishes. Besides, they are, despite their mad zealotry, doing a good job with eradicating the undead from Lordaeron. Though the Crusade's ranks are all human, it is not openly welcomed by the Alliance. However, its mission appeals to most within the Alliance, who generally agree that the undead need to be removed from Lordaeron so its citizens can return home. As news of the Crusaders' rising madness compete with tales of their good deeds and names of heroes amongst their ranks, especially the less informed peasants of regions far away from former Lordaeron still view this organization as a stalwart defender against the undead threat, such as Darkshire, who is especially affected by the undead. In part this is true, as the Crusade has indeed rescued refugees and defended civilian settlements in the Plague Lands many times, including a project to resettle villages that had been destroyed by the Scourge during the war. Also, Scarlet Crusaders are protecting the Soladin farmstead and its inhabitants, making it one of the few places in northern Lordaeron where the native farm folk have survived to this day, and also one of the few places in Lordaeron where they can get food that is unaffected by the plague of undead. Generally, the actions of the Scarlet Crusade are tolerated out of ignorance, and both the Alliance and the Church of Holy Light distance themselves from the Crusade's activities officially, but without trying to interfere. In fact, the Scarlet Crusade, who counts both the Alliance and the Church amongst their allies, maintains contacts to both by several emissaries. Examples can be found in the Cathedral of Light in Stormwind and in the Alliance outpost of Nigel's Point. The Scarlet Crusade has killed countless refugees fleeing the horrors of the Scourge, regarding them as possible carriers of the plague or even undead sympathizers. Many were carriers, and their growing zealotry has started to make the Crusade enemies all over Azeroth. Most Crusaders tend to think that anyone unassociated with their cause should have no business in the Plague Lands, and thus are behaving suspiciously if they enter this region. Travellers are advised to stay clear of Scarlet Crusaders, regardless of whether any undead are in the party. The Scarlet Crusade can be friend or foe, but is generally the enemy of anyone who cannot prove that he or she is alive. Qualifications and interpretations being subject to change without notice. Thank you for watching, and as always remember, play to game and game to play.